Hello there. Welcome to the Star Wars Guys YouTube channel where the Force is family, and welcome to the debut of Animation Friday. So this is where we're going to be talking about all of the animated side of Star Wars. Today we're going to be talking about Volume 1 of the Clone Wars 2D micro series. And then next week, we're going to start jumping into the 3D Clone Wars, and Animation Friday will be kicking off for real. Speaking of Animation Friday, Coffee on Korriban was here earlier, said, let's go. He is going to be one of my co-hosts for Animation Friday, and the other co-host is going to be the Matt Cave. And of course, once Michael gets his computer situation fixed, he will be joining us also. So, we are talking about Clone Wars, the 2D micro series, Volume 1. So this is just chapters 1 through 10. Now, next stream, which is going to be Sunday, which normally is our normal stream, that's when I'm going to talk about Volume 2. So tonight we're just talking about Volume 1, and Sunday we're going to talk Volume 2. I would be talking about both tonight, but unfortunately, I ran out of time due to getting this net situation fixed. And by the way, hello again to Leia Rose. Thank you earlier for tuning in to my tech demo sort of troubleshooting thing with the new Wi-Fi. But anyways, enough about that. Let's get on to it. So, the 2D Clone Wars series came out in 2003 between episodes 2 and 3. And let me see if I can find it, because the runtime for each of these, is like really, really short for each episode, like on average about 4 minutes. And if I understand correctly, these were originally aired on Cartoon Network, and then I think they got uploaded to StarWars.com, and then finally they were uploaded to Disney Plus, which is where I watched them. Now, on Disney Plus, they're not divided up by episode. They're divided in Volume 1 and Volume 2, but I have each episode listed out here. So it's chapters 1 through 10. So going into this, I got to stop shaking the table so much. Going into this, I had seen it once before, but never finished it. And honestly, at the time that I had first seen it, really didn't like it that much, because I was by this point used to the way the 3D Clone Wars did things, and comparatively, I didn't really like the animation to it and thought they made the characters look overpowered. And again, that's what I first thought of this when I first saw it. Those opinions have changed now. Even though the animation, it's not something I'm a big fan of, I certainly respect it. And yeah, the characters still do more in this show than they do in the 3D Clone Wars, but it doesn't look outright overpowered compared to, say, Rey. Like the stuff that they're doing in this show makes, is reasonable by comparison to what they do with the sequel trilogy. So let's talk about what happens in this. So it picks up just shortly after episode 2. And the important events that happen in this is where we're introduced to Asajj Ventress. This is where we're introduced to General Grievous. And this is where we first get the very first fight between Asajj Ventress and Anakin Skywalker. So let's talk through each chapter in order. So chapter 1 is just mostly an introductory chapter to the whole show, where it's mostly Yoda that is explaining what's going on in the galaxy, explaining that on Mon Calamari, the Quarren have aligned with the Separatists, while the Mon Cala have aligned with the Republic. That's going to come into play much later. And of course, Yoda makes sure to mention that Anakin Skywalker is getting stronger and stronger in the Force. And then it cuts to I'm pulling it up on Wikipedia here, excuse me. There's a meeting with Palpatine that informs everyone that the intergalactic banking clan has built huge hidden factories on the planet, and I'm probably going to say this wrong, the planet Munilist, and is producing massive droid armies and warships. So Yoda suggests that with Windu on Dantooine, which we'll see that later, that Obi-Wan leads the mission to take them down, but Palpatine tacks onto that, saying that Skywalker should lead the space battle, which Obi-Wan and I want to say Yoda also were very, very hesitant to agree to that. But through Palpatine's word manipulation, and again, the Jedi weren't able to pick up on the fact that he's Darth Sidious, that's ultimately what happens. And hello, by the way, to Cobra Disney Jedi, who asks, is this on Disney Plus? Yes, it is. It's the Clone Wars micro series. It's split up into 2 volumes. Volume 1 is what I'm talking about tonight. Volume 2, we're going to talk about Sunday night during our normal live stream, sort of as a addendum to Animation Friday. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So after the meeting with Palpatine, where Kenobi states that he doesn't think Skywalker's ready, and Yoda also points out that a Padawan's place is with his master, again, Palpatine's able to twist their words into permitting Skywalker to command the Space Force. Later on, there's a meeting between Obi-Wan and Anakin, where Anakin, who, by the way, actually sounds like Hayden Christensen in this show instead of Matt Lantor, they go to basically Obi-Wan and Anakin have a talk talking about how Anakin knows that Obi-Wan thinks he's not ready, but he wants to prove him ready. And Obi-Wan's like, okay, I don't like this, but if this is how it's going to be, then this is how it's going to be. And then the chapter ends with Kenobi boarding his ship and everyone leaving Coruscant. Kenobi even says a pretty cool line, I doubt even Master Qui-Gon could have prepared me for this. And then there's also a nice shot of Anakin in his fighter looking out his window into the window of Padme's apartment where Padme's there, and they give each other a silent goodbye through the window. So, very touching moment that was. Then it moves on to chapter 2, which continues from chapter 1 left off. Some of these are more standalone type episodes that kind of take place at the same time as the Battle on Munilist, which is kind of the central focus of this. But this is not one of those. This is a continuation. So chapter 2 is about the initial attack on Munilist, both in space and on the ground. It starts with Obi-Wan talking to the ARC troopers, basically telling them the mission that they're going to be securing the banking clan headquarters. Meanwhile, okay, so I got it wrong. It's in this chapter that the talk with Obi-Wan and Anakin happens, where Kenobi is like, okay, your skills, no one's doubting those, but what I'm worried about is your willingness to follow, basically your maturity, your willingness to follow orders and recognizing what your place is. But anyways, at that moment, the ground forces and the space forces get to where they need to be, and the attack begins. And then from there, chapter 3 begins, and you see the ARC troopers getting out of their crashed ship with snipers firing on them. Basically, this entire episode is one big ground battle between the ARC troopers and the droids, where there's a bunch of tanks involved, and the clones take it down. They use a probe droid to get into the massive banking clan artillery piece, and they take it down with their missile launcher and lay explosives around the cannon that the Separatists have, and then tell Obi-Wan. So really nothing to note in this episode other than just seeing how the clones operate, which, to be fair, the clones talk a lot less in this show than they do in the 3D Clone Wars, which is something that personally I like more about the 3D Clone Wars, that you actually hear from the clones' point of view more. But at the same time, just the silent little, hand signals that they have is still really cool to see. And it still effectively shows how efficient the clone army is, even this new into the war. And by the way, hello to Coffee on Korriban, who says, I'm still here, I'm just driving. By the way, I believe Coffee on Korriban's going to be having a stream of his own later tonight, so make sure to tune in for that. I will likely be there also. But anyways, back to what we're talking about. So that's pretty much episode 3 there. Episode 4 introduces the bounty hunter Dirge. And Dirge starts basically bringing the fight back to the clones. He gets on his speeder bike with a whole bunch of other droids like him. And they all, by the way, have these medieval-looking lances, but they look Star Wars-like. And they start taking down all the heavy cannons that the Republic have. And, of course, he lets out a war cry at the end, showing that he was victorious. And Dirge is a really interesting character that I do genuinely wish would be reintroduced into Disney canon. So, let's see. And yes, Dirge is an amazing character for reasons we're about to get into. So, let's see. Where is it? But we're going to take a break from Dirge for a minute and transition to what else is going on in the galaxy. Chapter 5 is about the Battle of Mon Calamari, which Kit Fisto was part of. Now, Kit Fisto is by nature a water-breathing being, basically. A Nautilon. In fact, I believe Nautilons come from Mon Cala. I just need to double check with that. I'm looking it up. No. Okay, so Nautilons are not from Mon Cala. They're from Gleonselm. But it's still an aquatic homeworld, much like Mon Calamari is. So Kit Fisto is going to be right at home in the water. And seeing Kit Fisto swim around with his lightsaber, able to take down all of the underwater enemies that was there, both the Quarren army and the underwater droids, was very cool to see. Not to mention the Mon Cala army that was behind Kit Fisto. It was cool to see that. And one of my favorite things that Kit Fisto did in this episode was basically he used the Force underwater to create a big air bubble right above him and just hurled it right at, I want to say it was an underwater cannon that the Separatists had. Let me double check that real quick. Where is it? Yeah, it's called a crab cannon. So, and like I said, Kit Fisto makes a big air bubble and with the Force throws it through the cannon, destroying it and pushing it off an underwater cliff, and the Republic wins. While that's going on, Count Dooku goes to the planet Ratatak, and he's there watching the gladiatorial matches there, hoping to find a worthy successor to Jango Fett. So Dooku's sitting there watching the action, and suddenly the person sitting next to him is someone different entirely. And it turns out this is Ventress. And Ventress, of course, is praised for her skill at stealth, but Dooku says he's not interested in an assassin. He's interested in someone that can actually take the fight to the Jedi. So Ventress dives into the pit herself and takes down everyone, wielding, weirdly, both a green and blue lightsaber. But anyways, eventually she beats everyone and eventually comes face to face with Dooku himself and boldly claims that she is Sith, which, of course, Dooku laughs at. And thus he releases a whole bunch of Force lightning on her and then brings her to his lair. So in his lair, Dooku and Ventress have a duel in which Ventress is defeated and her lightsabers are destroyed. But Dooku doesn't finish her off. Instead, he says that, quote, "We have other plans." So Sidious was there watching via hologram the whole time, and it's there that Ventress is officially hired as Dooku's acolyte, and thus given the iconic red curved lightsaber hilts that we know her to have. So after this, she's told that her mission is to hunt down and kill Anakin Skywalker. But after she leaves in her new starfighter, Sidious reveals to Dooku that it doesn't matter whether or not she wins or loses, that the true point is to test Skywalker. Because remember, Palpatine's thinking long game. He ultimately wants Anakin as his apprentice, and Dooku's just the placeholder, and Ventress is the pawn. In fact, Ventress, I think you could say, is the pawn of the pawn, if you understand what I mean. So, that being said, back to what's going on Munilist. Dirge has just destroyed all of their cannons. So Obi-Wan decides to meet Dirge head on in the same manner with I'm going to call them Star Wars lances of their own and speeder bikes. And by the way, Obi-Wan is now wearing clone armor mixed with some of his Jedi robes of his own. And so Obi-Wan and Dirge both take out multiple different members of the other's party. Oh, by the way, hello to the legendary Tron. He says, dropping in to say hi. My chill cast is tomorrow night. Awesome. Maybe I might drop in for that, but we'll see. So yeah, Obi-Wan and Dirge. Dirge takes out several cloned troopers. Obi-Wan takes out several droids. Finally, it comes down to between the two of them. And at first, everything's completely even-footed. Obi-Wan is able to reflect both with his saber and the Force anything that Dirge throws at him, but Dirge has a trick for everything that Obi-Wan tries, including, strangely, at least at first, being able to survive getting completely impaled all the way through his back by Obi-Wan's lightsaber. And it seems like Dirge is dead after Obi-Wan completely chops him up into pieces. But Dirge is able to reconstitute himself because, as it's later revealed, underneath Dirge's armor is just a big mass of muscle and tissue and tentacles that are able to completely change shape and, reattach to one another, which is why Dirge was able to survive being impaled on Obi-Wan's lightsaber. At some point during the fight, Dirge absorbs Obi-Wan into himself. And while he's taking on the clones, Obi-Wan is able to push out away from himself with the Force so hard that he is able to completely blow Dirge apart. And that's ultimately how Dirge is defeated and how that episode ends. And this one all of that again happens. All of that, like I said, happens with a whole in like 3 minutes. But in chapter 10, that is when we get the Anakin versus Ventress fight. Or toward the end of... Hold on a second. I'm looking at all of this through Wikipedia, and I'm just now realizing they have all the episodes divided up differently than what Disney Plus did. So I'm going to get rid of that real quick. But yeah, it's right after this that we get the Anakin versus Ventress confrontation. Now, it starts out with Anakin displaying his piloting skills in space above Mulist with the other clone pilots. However, Ventress comes in and gets Anakin's attention and leads them on a chase that ends up on Yavin 4, the same planet that the Rebels would establish their first base in the original Star Wars. Once they land, and of course Obi-Wan realizes what Anakin's doing and sends a squad of clones to go and help Anakin, the good master that he is. And yes, I agree, Coffee on Korriban, Anakin versus Ventress is such an amazing fight, and we're talking about that right now. So Ventress makes quick work of the clone troopers with the Force. She doesn't even draw her blades. Oh, and by the way, hello to Gogol13's Anime 101. And yes, we are talking about the Clone Wars 2D microseries Volume 1. Volume 2 will be Sunday night during our normal stream, our normal weekend stream. But anyways, after Ventress made quick work of the clone troopers, she faces off against Anakin. And as Coffee on Korriban just said, what follows is an absolutely amazing lightsaber fight. Like, both parties, Anakin and Ventress, just throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at each other. And they both get pretty banged up for it. In fact, Anakin loses almost his entire top portion garments, except for maybe a couple straps of cloth, going vertical down like this. And at a certain point, the further this fight goes, the deeper into the more aggressive and the less patient Anakin becomes. Until eventually Anakin's disarmed of his blue saber, but he's able to disarm Ventress of one of her red sabers to use for himself. At that point, Anakin really goes on the aggressive offense and starts laying down these heavy, heavy, heavy strikes on Ventress, dipping into the dark side as he does, until the ground beneath Ventress gives way, and she falls down pretty much until we can't see her. So, in a way, like Palpatine said, this was all to test Anakin. So, test complete, and I'd say Anakin, as far as channeling the dark side, earned a passing grade as far as Sidious was concerned. But the chapter ends with, number one, Anakin getting back with Obi-Wan and, getting scolded for, you shouldn't have gone after her. They were baiting you. And I'm a little bit concerned as to why the Sith has such an interest in you. But the episode ends with a whole group of Jedi in a crashed Venator Star Destroyer. Some notable names would include Ki-Adi-Mundi, Ayla Secura, and Shakti, that are all surrounded by the droid army, led by the, at the time, new droid general, General Grievous. And General Grievous absolutely mops the floor with everyone here. Now, granted, some just get knocked back and knocked out, but some do actually die. Like I forget what species Ki-Adi-Mundi is, but the Padawan that he has, that's the exact same species as him, he dies. And the Padawan that looks like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, he dies. A couple of the random non-human Jedi, they die also. Shakti gets knocked back. Ayla Secura gets knocked back until it's finally just Ki-Adi-Mundi versus General Grievous, who, by the way, at this point in this show, not only is he able to use lightsabers with his hands, but he's able to hold and use lightsabers with his legs and feet. Something we've never seen him do in either Revenge of the Sith or in the 3D Clone Wars movie. So that was impressive to see also. And yes, Coffee on Korriban, the intro with Grievous, is indeed haunting. So that is how Volume 1 ends, at least on Disney Plus, with Ki-Adi-Mundi about to go one-on-one with General Grievous. So what do I think of all of that? I think it's a good alternative telling to the Clone Wars time period. I think ultimately, having not seen all of either one yet, my guess is that the 3D Clone Wars series is the Clone Wars how George Lucas really wanted it to be, and Dave Filoni was the vehicle to get him that. But I can also see why other people prefer the 2D Clone Wars series over this one. And yeah, there are things about this Clone Wars series that I like over the other one. I've come to like just how comparatively completely OP both the Jedi and Sith are compared to the 3D Clone Wars. Now, I still like the 3D Clone Wars, but I understand why people like this one more. And of course, Coffee on Korriban with the meme here. That wasn't Anakin. No, General. That was Anakin. Yes, General. That was funny. So yeah, Volume 2 is going to be on Sunday during our normal weekend stream. And I think we're going to go ahead and yeah, what Coffee on Korriban just said here, Grievous arguably is better in the 2D Clone Wars. And spoiler alert for Volume 2, the 2D Clone Wars actually gives a reason why Grievous coughs, because Mace Windu uses the Force to crush in his chest. So the Clone Wars, the 3D version, never really explains that, but whatever. So anyways, we're going to go ahead and end this stream here. I know this was a shorter stream than what I usually do, but this is a short series, so it checks out. So make sure, guys, to hit like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. Tune in, by the way, to Coffee on Korriban stream later tonight. I don't remember what time, but it will be later tonight. I will likely be there, at least in the chat, if not maybe on the panel. Depends on if Timothy offers me a spot, but we'll see. But anyways, see you guys on Sunday, and just remember, everyone, the Force is family. Take care.